I don't even know where to start. Don't know what to say. Welcome back to another episode of Dirty Modo. I'm your host, Steve Letarte. Producer Trav in the ugliest Ohio State t-shirt ever. Professor, big smile on his face, and in the bottom corner of my screen, the president of the Austin Dillon fan club, Tampa Timms.
Hey, that chicken shit. He deserves it. Look at that bum. Even when he does something right.
If you're not watching on YouTube, Tampa has a shirt. I don't know where he got it, but it has a chicken with a 3, and next to it, the poop emoji. Well done, Tampa.
Accurately describes what that move was.
Where'd you get that shirt?
Found it on Etsy.
Etsy.
That's a great site.
I don't buy anything off Etsy. It scares me.
Oh, this is the best purchase I've ever made. I mean, oh my God. Fast delivery.
There you go. If you want a chicken shirt, apparently they're on Etsy. I actually think Tampa Timms, the president fan club, he's probably selling them to cover his losses.
I'll tweet it out. I'll tweet out the link.
All right, so listen, let's talk about this. But before we get into anything, news out, it doesn't get him in the playoffs, all of that stuff, but he's the winner. In our world, I don't care what happens in the NASCAR world. I don't care what happens in the playoff world. We live in the sportsbook world. And in the sportsbook world, Austin Dillon, W, win, stamp it, rubber stamp it. Don't care what the penalty is. Sportsbooks say he won.
Paid out.
Yeah, I wonder if they made a decision in the moment what they would have done. I mean, I guess then second place is the winner, right? And so the Austin Dillon bets don't cash. I don't know. It would have been interesting, though.
It is going to be interesting because so NASCAR made what I consider a pretty monumental penalty, right? Basically, they said, look, you're the winner, but you're out of the playoffs. I'm going to give my 2 cents. First of all, even on Sunday night, I didn't like the move. I never liked those moves. I don't mind if you pass somebody with contact, if it's artistic contact. And you could call me out and say, what's the difference? But even Richard Petty said, I don't mind a little bump and a little this. And Greg Biffle said it. And all these guys that have done it all articulate in a different way. But for me, if you're good enough to move a guy out of the way with a scalpel, little artistic contact, right? Slide a guy up, go on by. That's racing. That's NASCAR. We're not Formula One. I don't want us to be Formula One. I like the contact. But when I, who have never run a lap at Richmond, but I've watched thousands of them, watched Austin Dillon entering turn 3, there's only one outcome. Either he or the 22 isn't leaving the corner. You can't enter 10 miles an hour too fast all of a sudden and think you're going to make it. I didn't like that move. I actually think that move was legal. I don't know what NASCAR would say now that we have this new line drawn. Whether I like it or don't like it, I think that was a legal win.
And NASCAR said that they were asked if it was just the Logano Austin Dillon incident would have been if this happened. They would not answer that.
Well, they won't answer it because they don't put themselves in a corner. For me, I didn't like how he won it. I'm okay with the penalty, to be honest. I would have been okay with no penalty. But I do think a line needs to be drawn. It has nothing to do with Austin Dillon. Follow me on this. You're a rookie driver or first, second-year driver, and you're driving for a team, and you chase a guy down into the corner on the last lap, and you choose not to wreck him because you were raised that I'm not going to wreck a guy for the win. Should the owner fire you? Because, hey, guys are starting to do it. So should we expect our players, our athletes, to race like that? And I think expecting that is the mistake, and that's why a line has to be drawn for me, right, is because I think if you're Ty Gibbs, if you're Harrison Burton, if you're Todd Gilliland, I can make the list. Corey LaJoy's never won a race. If you're Corey LaJoy, you know what I mean? It's like I think there has to be some parameter for not only you to operate in, but for you to be judged by, right? So your owner can then say, man, you did everything you could. Your sponsor, your fan base. I just think it's like targeting in football. The 4 or 5 of us think, why would you need a targeting rule? None of us want to knock ourselves out. But there's a whole wave of football players who would be happy to do it 6 times a season. So you're like, okay, we got to save these guys from themselves. I feel this is the same way. And in the end, I don't care as long as Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano and Chase Elliott and everyone else who I think is going to be Christopher Bell, make the list of guys who are going to be contending for a championship. As long as they understand the line, then I'm good with it. And that's really all that matters to me. So
I kept saying, people were like, where's the line at? And my comparison was, it's the definition of porn. You know it when you see it.
Man, you're right. I think that's the problem. Here's my opinion. Here's actually my opinion. When people say here's the line, I think now what NASCAR has said is what's even questionable, and if you choose to race that way, you now will be judged. Like I can't chase Tampa Timms down, bump him, what I think is acceptable. Tampa can't drive, he backs it in the fence, and then NASCAR says the bump was too much, and then me get mad. That's all fine, but NASCAR has now said we're going to judge that move. So, like, if you really don't want to be put on the question, just pass him cleaner. Like, I know that sounds silly, but I agree with you, Trav. Like, if you hit someone, you now know you will be judged. And I think the, quote, line is never going to be black. It's not going to be inbounds, out of bounds. It can't. Like, racing's not that way. But when you leave not even in question to in question. I think that line is pretty clear, right? Right, Tampa? Like, we now know when we're going to jump over that line and be like, ooh, this baby's going to at least be under review is their famous 2 words, right? This is going to be under review. And once it goes under review, if you don't like the call, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, my thing is, like, the Joey thing I have no issue with. I think we all saw it coming. Like, he's going to do it.
I don't like it, but I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, no, I was like silently rooting for it because I'm like, that would be exciting if he just dives it in there way too deep and knocks him out. But then it didn't work, right? Denny comes through and then whatever, he cleans Denny out. That's where I think the issue is, and that's where I think the line should be. But going forward, I don't know. I don't hope they don't police the bump and runs like that because that is a big part of the sport.
Timms, what would your Sunday have been like had Joey been wrecked and then Denny not wrecked?
Well, I would have cashed a Denny Hamlin win bet and then an Austin Dillon top 10 bet. So it would have been great.
You have another shirt with a 3 on it, but it wouldn't look like that.
Yeah, I would have been a huge Austin Dillon fan. And you know what sucks, though? He had probably the second best car and was probably going to get his first real, like, I whooped the field win in his career.
I actually think he had the best car.
Yeah, he might have, yeah. I mean, after Christopher Bell sped.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I forgot about Bell. I'll give you that. Maybe tied with Bell. The problem is this. He drove a great 407 laps, and then he was like, dude, you're the restart. Like, I said it on the broadcast. When you sniff line 1, go.
But are you talking about Austin?
Yes.
But he was like minus, like, what, 87 Russ on restarts? Like, that just isn't what he does.
No, he was 35th best. I didn't dare ask who was 36th.
35th best on restarts in the series.
Great. Okay, so if you're listening, we've got to basically the 7-minute mark. This doesn't happen very often, but here you go. Stat of the year so far. Stat of the year is the professor holding up the whiteboard. Austin Dillon ranks 35th on restarts. Because that precipitated the contact. That's everything came from the restart zone. And I'm telling you, he didn't hold it up, guys. He looked like he was one of those cheerleading competitions. Up and down. It was waving. It was going back and forth. He wasn't sure Rick was going to say it, so it went past Rick, and it was in front of Jeff and I, and it was like, and I'm like, oh, I got it. But it was a
great
stat.
stat.
Yeah,
great stat.
It told the story. It told the story, and it came out to be true, right? Like, that's what lost him the race, in essence.
So, but on this, Paul, let's circle it all back around Tampa. Your point is well taken. So now that NASCAR said there is this line, we're going to officiate this line, we're going to have to do all those things, what is it going to look like? Because we have had results change with technical infractions, but I feel like NASCAR as a whole, now as soon as I say this, somebody will do something dumb, but a series as a whole has seemed to have cleaned that up, and we've had very little talk about car issues, which I love, right? So now the question is, I'm okay that they call it. However they want to call it. Don't care. But are we talking 30 seconds or Wednesday? Because now my problem is Wednesday is unacceptable for me. I was okay in the Austin Dillon thing, but now that we know we're going to call it, they have to do something in the tower, bring extra people. I don't care what they do. It's their business. I do have an opinion. I would like to see them bring, like in other forms of motorsports, former drivers in. Give them the definition of what's okay and not okay, and let Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, Bobby Labonte, you name the Hall of Fame list of drivers, let them decide. Let people who have done it decide, is that acceptable or not? Like, give them some definition of the line. Here's what we like to see. For instance, we're good with the bump and run. We don't want somebody that goes in and just wrecks somebody with no intent to pass them, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the line is. And then if Rusty Wallace says that's what's happened, who am I? This guy's a champion. He's won a ton of races. When Martin Truex Jr. retires, as long as he doesn't have an assignment with a team, let him decide.
First of all, Martin Truex is not going to be in a booth. He's going to be on a John boat fishing. I don't know.
Listen, everybody has a number, Trav.
I don't know if
everybody has a number.
But I don't know if I want like a Rusty like Because are they going to view it as in how NASCAR wants it viewed, or are they going to be in what their eyes are?
So how I would do it is I would have 2 drivers, and the most senior NASCAR official would make up the trio. I would have 3 people, and their job during the race would be to steward just driver performance. That's what I'd do.
But they need to make the decision immediately, or not 5 seconds. But I think
but I before I go to victory lane,
you're well within your rights to
is
take 5
cheering in
minutes.
victory lane, confetti. Whoever gets the confetti picture should be the one the sportsbook pay, right? Because on this pod we're talking about gamblers.
Yeah.
And when we talk to the gamblers about betting Austin Dillon, and here's why: Austin Dillon top 10. If Austin Dillon would be running 11th. And you don't know who won. It's more than just the win bet. It affects so many things that we have got to get to the results as soon as possible, and I need that to happen pretty quick. Enough about Richmond. Whew, I've talked about it all week. I wouldn't have talked about it on here, but since we had the president of the fan club, it had to be our lead story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even when he does well, he can't do anything right.
Now we're on to Michigan, though. Playoff line, crazy. Cut line, out of control. One of the best racetracks on the circuit. This is bring it all, buddy. Horsepower, downforce, aerodynamics, pit strategy. You better have it all if you think you're going to contend for a win here. You're going to have the best car, best everything, and if you mess up the strategy, you'll be beat. You know, if you can have the strategy perfect and if you don't have a good enough car, you can't hold the lead. I mean, it kind of has a little bit of everything. So, Professor, I got one complaint about the predictor, man. Could we pick shades?
Yeah,
This week, the top guys are like some damn neon Tampa bar scene. Like, I don't know what color green this is. So by all means, they're standing out. So let's hear them. What's the predictor say?
What's that?
Well, let's have it. You're on tap.
So he's back on top. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, the top tier.
So instantly, before we get too far into this, one Ford in the top tier, Ryan Blaney, although Ford has run really well at Michigan. What are their stats lately?
Won the last 9 there, but 5 of those were Harvick. So I think that's important to say.
Okay. That's a good ad.
Then
Hamlin, Larson, Reddick, Blaney.
Yep.
Small group. I thought we'd have a bigger group or some other names. All right.
Also, yeah. Vegas, the top 4 drivers are this. Russ, did you just mail the whole thing to him?
Oh, make no mistake about it. I'm surprised he doesn't wear a damn casino shirt on this thing. He's got deals with more Vegas stuff.
Good Lord.
So to be fair, you got to be honest. I texted you this before any of those lines came out to you.
Well,
I don't know. I don't open it till right now.
But when did you text it to Vegas?
Don't worry about that. Then
why do you think the lines came out? Your defense was almost guilt.
Yeah.
I sent this to you before the lines came out. Yeah, no Sherlock. So you sent it to them, and then the lines come out. I'm going to tell you, if I ever go to jail, he's not going to be my representation.
All right, go ahead, Russ.
If you go to jail, I'll be with you. Tier
Probably
2,
true.
Bell, Byron, Elliott, Truex, and Keselowski.
I'd love to tell you there's some value, but right now you've basically just overlaid the odds.
Well, you just said before this, like, you got to be good to win it at
That's
Michigan,
true.
right? Like, so.
Well, let's go to the gambler then. That's the predictor. We're going to get deeper into the predictor, but let's start with the win. Tampa, you see the predictor. What's your gut say? I see a little bit of action over here on the spreadsheet. I'm in the right one this week, and I see what you highlighted. Let's see it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kyle Larson probably the best, just based off his average finishes there and comp tracks. But my thing is like Hendrick hasn't won here since 2014, I think it says on my notes. That's a long time. It's 10 years. Denny Hamlin's another one I like too. He's got the best average finish here, all in next gen era. But there's really no value. So I think it's really just who runs well in practice, qualifying, and kind of pick there. I could pick any one of these guys. There's a Blaney, Keselowski, Logano, the Fords. I mean, like you said, they won 9 times. They won the last 9 races. I could pick any one of these guys. I wouldn't talk anybody off of them.
So you say the value's not there, but am I imagining this that 650 is not as short as we've seen for some winners?
No, definitely not. No, 700. I mean, it looks actually better than I think it really is. I've seen they should be 400 and 450 probably of what we've
That's
seen.
what I was thinking. So you have
week.
4 guys under 10-1, and then they're 10-1. if we go back, I'm going to say 8 weeks, like beginning of the summer, I felt like the top 2 or 3s were like 4-1s, to your point. So not that I'm excited for a 7-1 for the poor gambler out there, because everything can go wrong. So you like Larson at 7-1?
I like Larson
When
7-1.
was the last time you could get Larson 7-1 on a real racetrack? Like, that's
To your point, Steve, Pocono, Hamlin 450, Larson 550.
yeah.
It's getting tight now.
Now, if you believe in – go. I don't want to jump in front of the predictor. All right, so Hamlin, Larson, Reddick, Blaney, Tier 1. Bell, Byron, Elliott, Truex Jr. trying to make a win in his final year. And Kez still hasn't won in Michigan. That party would be – we'd have to get the Miller Lite boot back out for Brad Keselowski if he won at Michigan. If you don't know it, YouTube it, Championship Celebration. It's A+. Let's go to Tier 3.
Tier 3, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, who won there last year, Ross Chastain, Ty Gibbs, and Joey Logano.
Russ, what's Bubba's average finish the last 4 races? I feel like he's right now on a good run.
I agree. Him and Reddick have been on fire.
Yeah, lost in that mess last week. 23-11, third and fourth place.
Yeah, it's under 10th. Actually, you go back to the last 5 races, his worst finish is 13th. 4th and 5th in the last 2 races. So
Bubba's numbers at Michigan aren't monster, which are weird to me because it's a track I think you should be good at.
yeah, but he's run well there in the next gen car. He was runner up, won the pole in 2022, and then last year he ended up 18th, but he led 21 laps, was running top 10 all day, finished top 5 in both stages. I think he's a good pick this week.
I actually like next door to one another. I think I hate to use the word. Although, by the way, did anybody watch a pre-race last week?
No.
So we do a little betting segment. I had 2 long shots picked. The 3 and the 4.
Look at that.
I actually had the long shot picked a couple weeks ago, and they didn't even air it, which crushed my soul a little bit, so I had to come back. So speaking of long shots, and I hate to say long shots, but they are longer. You have one highlighted, and I like Bubba below him. Ty Gibbs at 22-1 and Bubba at 25-1. I know Fords, and I hear all that stuff, and I have a little concern about Toyotas with their engines. Like, you're going where the engines are going to be tested at the highest, and we saw Truex break another one. And I can't listen. I ask them what they say, and they say they're kind of not related, and they give me a bunch of different stories, and I'm not going to air them all out here. But the simple fact is, they have broken a few, and that concerns me going to Michigan. But speed-wise, Gibbs and Bubba both over 20-1. I see you have Gibbs highlighted, Tampa.
Hold on.
I do.
Steve, so with the engines, there's been 4 of them, and they said they're different issues. Is that more concerning? It's just something different.
I mean, I think it's more concerning that they're different issues because if it's one issue, well, here's the problem. My concern if it's one issue is why can't you fix it? If it was one issue all at the same race, but you should be able to fix it. Sometimes what happens, it's like the old air bubble under a decal, right? I know they're different issues, but you get an air bubble over here and you start to fix it, and all it does is move somewhere else. So you wonder why they are technically maybe different parts, are they really different issues, right? Like if, say, I'm going to make this up, oiling, RPM, there's a million things it could be, right? But if it's, are they fixing the oiling in one area and it's failing the car, the engine in a different area? I don't know. It's impossible to know, nor do I expect them to tell me. But let's talk about this. You got sealed engines. You got to run engines, a sealed engine, which means it's the bottom half of an engine that's raced before. You have to do that a lot over the course of the year. Starting to get into the second half of the year, so I don't know if that's part of it. There's a lot of stories around these Toyota engines.
But we haven't seen anything from 2311 or Legacy, though, right?
No. Not yet, Rick Allen. Well, Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, they were on a hot streak. And it's coming out on air, too, if it happens. You're like, no, don't worry, producer Trav, Rick Allen, this guy.
Sorry, Denny.
No, I actually like Tier 3 a lot. I like all of them. For long shots, I mean, I have Ty Gibbs circled, honestly, just because I just have a feeling. I mean, he's done nothing recently that tells me this should be well. But, he has decent runs here. I think in the 2 races he's ran, right around the top 10. And it just seems like a track that he could get that first win. Kind of seems like it could happen. That's the only reason. That's all I got for you. But Bubba, Buescher, Chastain. I mentioned Logano earlier. I could see you throwing something on any of those guys. Bubba's 25-1, Chastain's 30-1, Buescher 20-1. He won this race last year, so I like those numbers for those guys because we've had 5 first-time winners for the season in the last 11 races. This is a trend we're starting to see, and if you're looking for that guy who still needs the win, any of those guys besides Logano needs the win. I like those guys from that group.
Steve, do you think we have a new winner this year before the playoffs?
Look at Russell's head shake.
Russ, what do you think?
First career or first of the year?
First of the year.
I don't know if we get one before the playoffs.
Russ?
Yes.
Daytona or a speed win somewhere else?
I think any of these next 3 tracks, you could have a first time winner this year. Like when you look at Chastain, Buescher, Gibbs, like you said, Bubba, like I could see any of them winning the next 3 weeks. Any of these races.
I wouldn't mind seeing it this week because then that bubbles even. It's going to get even more entertaining then.
Oh, it's good too.
It's already good now, but let's get one more and because then that throws Gibbs is now in the mix. Like,
so listen, we don't normally talk tier 4, but we're going to get there because I got some conversations to have here. Go ahead, Professor. You have the floor.
Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Kyle Busch, Eric Jones, McDowell, Berry, and Cindric, all kind of grouped together there.
All right, first, let's congratulate Eric Jones. I saw a contract extension for Legacy, making some moves in upper management as well. All right, I'm gonna go last. I'm gonna go last on this one.
I want to just say, Russ, you mentioned Bowman. It reminded me. You can't every Sunday when something's about to happen try to like pawn off your Bowman bet to somebody else. Like, what are we doing?
You know what? I've quit warning him. All I'm doing is just mentally increasing the order. Every time he has a smart-ass answer, it's one more round of appetizer. Do you want extra stone claws on the seafood tower? Well, actually, we do. Thanks for asking.
We get a text if Austin Dillon wins, Timms, you should have to pay for the dinner.
Yeah, right.
No, what?
Yeah.
You're dying in that bed.
Oh, dude. And every time he says it, I'm like, yep. No, the big stone crab claws. We don't want the jumbo. Two per person. 2 per person. Matter of fact, to the waitress, you like them? Go ahead and get yourself a couple also. So I got a serious question. I'm going last here. Does the 3 cars speed at Richmond help or hurt Kyle Busch's attitude? Argument being help because RCR put more speed on the racetrack. Argument being hurt because it wasn't him and Austin Dillon lapped him to go on to close to win the race. Won the race, technically. Better or worse, Tampa, for Kyle Busch?
I think it's better. I think he knows it's in the building. They can move engineers all they want. They can do all that all they want. It's in the building. I think that's a plus.
I like that. Trav?
If this was 15 years ago, I'd say it's worse, but I think because of him being older and everything, I think it's better. Like he's seeing, okay, it's there. We're going to get it.
Professor, I know you don't have a positive spin on this, so by all means, let's hear yours.
No, I think it's worse. Like, if he's got it, why doesn't Kyle have it too? Like, why is it different?
And I ask that, and because I can't wait to see who shows up at Michigan. Because I believe, Tampa, you're dead on, right? If I'm Kyle Busch, I'm like, all right, we're better. We found something. So I'm coming in with some optimism into Michigan. You know, there was all this chaos and penalties, and it wasn't me. Let me just keep my head down. But it's a little bit rhetorical till we see him, right? I want to see who shows up. I agree. I think for Kyle Busch, it should be an improvement. It's an interesting group, though, right? Because you have Bowman with a win, Suarez with a win. I'm talking tier 4 on the books. Kyle Busch with a bazillion wins, none this year. Eric Jones with a couple. How many career wins does Jones have? Maybe 3?
3, I believe. 4.
2 Darlingtons and 1 other? Daytona. 2 Darlingtons?
He's
How
got
good am I?
3. Yep.
Daytona, 2 Darlingtons. McDowell, road course guy. Berry still searching, and Cindric with a win, right? So, it's kind of funny. When you look through the books, there's not a lot of drivers in the Cup Series that haven't won a race. It's shocking, to be quite honest. So, Josh Berry kind of the guy looking. And then we have just everybody else, right? I mean, you're giving Todd Gilliland a 29th no respect.
He's just inconsistent.
That's our winner bets. Let's talk about something else then. Is there any top 10 interest? You had an Austin Dillon top 10. Let's just bury the front guys, right? Minus 300s for the front 3 or 4s. No way you're betting that. Well, I shouldn't say that. No way I would bet that. Tampa, you're not going to bet.
No,
minus.
no, not at all.
Truex, Bell, Kez. I don't. Top 10s are not a guarantee. Byron Elliott at minus 170, starting to get more interesting. Buscher minus 150. Gibbs minus 130. Bubba at plus 105.
It's the first one I like off this board. Bubba, what has he done? He's got 4 top 10s last 10 races, all in the last 5 races. He's red hot right now. He's points racing. Give me plus money for Bubba top 10. I'll cash it all day.
And here's why I love it. I think that could be upside down on something, wrong side of a strategy. And if he restarts, say, 14th, 16th, I think he has raw speed to drive up to 10th or 9th. Now, he's going to drive up into the top 5, but I don't think he has to do everything perfect to be in the top 10. I think he can run out, back half of the top 10 with just a good day, right? Good car, good day.
And to Tim's point, he said he's points racing, where I think if Bubba's in 4th place, he's not going to do anything dumb.
Agreed. He's going to be trying to get those points.
I think the same for Chastain, though. Like, you watch them.
So I'm telling you, though, am I just anti-Chastain, or are they just don't impress me as much this year?
Well, they were impressive at Richmond. We just had so much else to talk about.
Okay, Richmond. But other than Richmond, when's the last mile and a half or bigger track where the one car has been good?
Charlotte.
We're almost to Labor Day. We're talking about Memorial Day?
Well, we really haven't been at that many.
Summer's over.
2 since then, really.
Don't let your stats ruin my story.
I'll say, with the way they've run to maybe take Richmond out of it, plus 105 is not. That needs to be a lot better for me. Like a plus 140, I'd be on it, but plus 105, I'm not taking that because he's going to run probably 8th to 15th, and I don't know. It's not the confidence I have like I have in Bubba.
Well, it's funny because Bowman gets longer odds, but in the matchups, Bowman's the favorite, and I think Bowman will outrun Chastain.
This is not a good track for Bowman.
Neither was Chicago. Sorry. Still too sensitive.
Way too.
I found it funny.
No, so tell me, not a good track for Bowman. Let's hear it.
Average finish is 24th here. He's got one top 10 in 14 starts.
That's why you listen. I'm not going to buck the trends. As much as I want to disagree, I'm going to believe the professor. Top 10 in 20-something starts.
3 top 10s and 14 starts. But the other ones were a long time ago. There's one in the last 5 or 6 races.
Yeah, that's a problem.
His best finish is 9th.
I got a question because you're going to get value. What about the Spire Trio?
Ooh. I love Carson Hocevar this weekend.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Look, Hocevar is plus 400. Corey is 20-1. Zane Smith is 20-1. Ooh. So, can one of the Spire cars get in the top 10?
I think Hocevar, he's shown he can. I think Corey finished 34th last week, and Carson has finished 9th. So he's got raw speed. I feel like he's good in here in the Truck Series. I don't know if he's won a race or not, but this feels kind of like Ty Gibbs again. It feels like a good track for him, except Carson is putting the results in. And I 4-1 for a top 10, I like that a lot. The first time I've liked a long shot like this in a while for a top 10.
And I think, in late restarts, he can either find you that top 10 or run into somebody because that's how he goes. But I would much rather have somebody going forward with the chance of contact than a guy that's just absolutely bleeding positions and you just hope it doesn't go too far, right? Because to your point, he has a little bit of the it factor. Now, sometimes the Dart has a couple less feathers than it should have on it as it's going through traffic. But I think that's youth. I'm not picking on I would absolutely love this kid as a driver, right? I think I would rather have the youthful exuberance going forward that you try to educate, or just really don't have to educate. You just let experience come to him a little bit. But it's hard to match that just go pedal, right? Like those aren't calculated things. Is my point, right? There's one thing having raw speed. Then there's the guy that always seems to find a hole, sometimes the wrong one. But when 2 wide turns into 3 wide, turns into 4 wide, he's still pushing the issue. I kind of like that for a race car driver.
Yeah. You know what I like about this bet? It's compared to maybe like a Daniel Suarez or a Michael McDowell who could possibly get up there. I think those guys, they make calls to try to go win the race. They go off strategy a lot. I don't think Hocevar and that team necessarily does that. I think they play the race to just get the best result they can.
Yep.
And I think that's a really big factor of why I like him for a top 10. And I'm not worried that they're going to go off sequence to try to make a 8th place car into a winning car.
They almost have relegated themselves as, hey, we're not ready to be a playoff team yet. So let's not just keep throwing Hail Marys, and if one hits, maybe we get super lucky. They're like really blocking and tackling. We're going to race how we feel it should be done. That way we can trend our results over the course of the year. We can see implemental improvements. They're like a running game offense, right? Like we're not gonna go away from what we are, and we want to see improvement week in and week out.
You know what they're doing? They're trying to improve their their team owner standings, and make a little more money if you finish this spot versus this spot, and throwing those Hail Marys.
No disagreement. I like it.
And it's a home race.
Is that all your top 10? What's that, Professor?
It's a home race for him. He's a Michigan guy.
Ooh. What if he won before Keselowski at Michigan?
What's the population of where he's from? Do we know that number?
Probably a little bit more than Prosper, Texas.
I'm not doing that.
That was not the best stat that Russ ever came up with.
I love that stat.
That was amazing. I didn't know there was 30,000 people.
Yeah.
It was, hold on. It was a good stat if it would have been used when I gave it to him.
I'm staying out of this argument.
Tim's, what about Denny Hamlin top 3?
Yeah, so this is probably the first week I've liked some top 3 bets. The Denny, I just think it's kind of like we talk about Larson. He never really runs 6th to 10th. He's always got the winning speed, top 5 speed. Denny kind of same thing. I never see him really have a 4th to 5th place car. He's usually up there top 3. So and Russ, you have this stat in the notes, and 13 races this year have been decided in the last 10 laps. So for me, who lost the Denny Hamlin bet, but he finished 2nd last week, I kind of like having some action on top 3 if I'm gonna bet him to win too.
I thought you were crazy, but then I started looking around the board at plus 180s, just purely, right? I'm like, well, so that's an equivalent to, say, Kyle Busch top 10. That's plus 160, right? So I'm like, or Chase Elliott top 5. And I was thinking, man, I think Timms is onto something here, right? Like to your point, if you said I'm going to give you nearly 2-1, he has to finish top 3 of 36 cars. Well, he's racing maybe 9 cars. 10. Let's be honest, right? He's not racing the back 25 cars. He's going to have way more speed than all of them. So you're basically 2-1 that he doesn't hit something and he can outrun the other 7 or 8 in his class. This is almost like IMSA racing, right? He's in the GTD Pro. Can he finish? So it took me a little bit of convincing, but I see your rationale at the plus 180.
Yeah, and these are not full unit.
Oh,
plays.
go ahead.
These
Wait,
are sprinkles.
Professor just threw his hand up. What was that?
Whoa.
And well, he's been 6th or better in the last 6 races there, but this bet would have cashed in 3 of the last 4.
Love it.
Oh,
That
guys.
might not make the end of the
So
show.
listen, this is how it works. Tampa has his hat on backwards, and when you start to see the brim, that means it's a bet because he's looked down to his paper. He looked down like he's writing it down. The brim pops up. It's kind of like a paddle in a auctioneer. Yep. Bet for Tampa Timms.
I mean, you
circled
have
it.
to keep a legal notepad by you during this podcast.
Legal too. We're 11 by 14, folks. We don't mess around. 8.5. We're not. No. We haven't got in football season yet. We're gonna have to have multiple pads. Speaking of football season, we're going to talk a little football in the pod here in a little bit. Trav, you got to say,
We got an expert.
lead the way. Let's hear it.
Chris Felica, the Bear, Fox Sports. He's coming on. This man is a football junkie. Used to have Stanford Steve and the Bear podcast at ESPN. I might have produced it. He's now at Fox. He's on Big Noon Kickoff. So he's gonna give us some more information than our just throwing stuff at the wall.
Love it. Love it. Don't you worry. I got my 11 by 14 with 2 color pens. I am ready to go for the Bear. Let's move off from top 3s, 5s, 10s.
Should we go to our favorite?
Yeah, let's do it.
Finishing position.
For sure. Jump right to finishing position. Some great ones this year. I don't know what the deal is. Michael McDowell's on here again.
I think they know that this podcast talks about. They're like, do we want to do it? No one bets it.
So I'm going to tell you, Michael McDowell, it's over under 22.5, and I like the under.
Someone's trying to become friends with Michael McDowell.
No, the predictor has him 19th.
And how about his call by his crew chief last week? Brilliant.
Was it brilliant?
It was. He was going to go another lap down.
You're talking about we didn't even talk about the option tires. There's been so much stuff happening at Richmond. We're not going to talk about them now, but I do agree with the call, Professor. Love the call. Free pass, option tires, get back into the race.
Yeah, but you're back. I think when you're in the back of the race, like the field, it's easy to make that call. What do you have to lose?
Another lap?
But if you put those tires on, you're not going to go a lap down.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That was the point. Like, he had to...
He had to use them. It was a good time to use them.
He had to. That's not a great call. That's the obvious call.
Well, only 2 guys did it.
Yeah, only 2. Who? Yeah.
Man, you're a Monday morning quarterback and son of a gun. That was easy. I'd have done it that way, too.
I'm just saying, when you're in the back of the pack, it's easy to make that call.
Says the man who's never been in the back of the pack. No, it's easy to make that call when you have a podcast and mic on middle of the week. I'm going to call it like I see. I'm going to defend the crew chief. You took a shot. I can't let that happen. I'd get kicked out of the union.
I mean, you said last week crew chiefs basically don't matter with Adam Stevens, so.
No, I said he didn't have to be at the track. And what happened? They called the 20 out into the traffic. Click a crunch. Oh, no. All right, Michael McDowell, 22.5. Professor, can you get on board with the under?
It's right there. I love that line.
Of course you did. You said it.
The numbers say over, but
Wait, hold on a second. The model, what do you have him on the model?
I have him 19th.
So how do the numbers say?
Well, if you go...
So here's my prediction. Hold on. Here we go. I think he's going to be running right at the line speed-wise. I think the pressure of the playoffs is here, and we are going to have a couple restart wrecks, and if he misses those, that moves him in.
I like that.
Now, I don't know if I'd bet it at minus 125, but I think the under's going to cash. Ricky Stenhouse, 23.5.
That's a good one, too. Good job, Russ.
The numbers would say it's an absolute hammer on the over, which is unfortunate, but he just doesn't have the numbers here. What do the numbers say, Professor?
I kind of like just purely Michigan, not looking at this season. I like the under on that.
Why do we even have a predictor?
Well, because you got to look at the whole scope of everything, right? If you take everything into account, then I like the over. If you just think Michigan's going to come into play, then you do the under.
I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see if we can get you to commit to any of these. How about Eric Jones at 18.5?
Really struggling this year. I think we have him right on the predictor at 18th. So that's a push.
Of the 3 bets so far that you want to ignore all of them, Jones over, I think, is my favorite at the moment at plus money.
I've already placed it.
There it is, the Tampa Timms hot take.
That's the sweat bet of the week. I mean, it's not even going to be a sweat. I think this is going to be an easy one. This would have cashed 8 of the last 10 races.
There you go.
It's good enough for me.
There's the stat.
I'm with Tampa. Let's quit talking about Bubba Wallace. I think it's a major minus, so I wouldn't bet it. But I think it's an under. I think we've already talked. What you're going to look at is Bubba Wallace. You can get top 10 at plus 105, 13.5 at minus 155. I wouldn't buy 3 positions for 55 points, basically, is what we're talking about, right, Tampa? You just like the top 10. You don't need 11th, 12th, 13th. You go all the way to the top 10.
No, take the top 10.
Daniel Suarez, 17.5. Predictor has him right at 16th. Had a great car after the option tires, but if he doesn't have option tires at Richmond, he doesn't run great. Listen, I think it's over because I've been unimpressed with Trackhouse, but we'll see.
He's had a good stretch, though, the last 4 races.
So your expectations for him are different than everyone else?
Well, he was 11th at Chicago, 16th at Pocono, 8th at Indy, and 10th at Richmond.
So you think a 13th average finish over the last 4 races is a good stretch?
Absolutely.
It's all relative.
That's a month and a half.
For him, that's good.
All right. I was being a little ugly there, but I see what you're saying.
Last week was also a big strategy call that he played out and stayed up there, but
It was a great call.
it was a great call.
For the sake of the bear coming, let's move. Where are we going to go now? We got qualifying. Tampa's not even going to be around for qualifying, so we can
Hang
skip
on.
that.
So
If I can find, I can't find the line,
they're not out.
but boy, do I like Christopher Bell to win the pole this weekend. Might be my favorite bet. He's got 7 poles on comp tracks in this next gen car. And he was second, and he won the pole last year here at Michigan. That's a hammer bet if I can find the damn line. If there's no line, I'll be so mad I'm never betting qualifying again.
So, folks that might be new to the show, Timms hates betting qualifying because that means he has to remember to bet on Saturday. Timms can barely remember to drink a water on Saturday. Mm-hmm. He wants to bet it this week. Right now, there is no qualifying to win the pole. We do have some matchups, but the one that he needs, it's not out there right now.
That's funny.
It'll
come.
so suck.
Hopefully. Just be patient.
I don't think it will.
Oh, boy.
It would have been. It's always been out by now.
Well, then we're going to, until we get the bet you want, we're not going to talk qualifying. Let's go right into race matchups. 23-11 versus RFK. That's a great line. They're heads up. I mean, I think that's just an A-plus line. You would think it should be 23-11 with Reddick being a Tier 1 driver and Bubba being a Tier 3 driver. But Buschers win kind of, and Brad loves Michigan. And I think I have to go with the numbers, no offense to RFK and last year's performance, but I do believe I'm going to have to go 23-11 in that coin flip of a bet. But it's a coin flip.
Is this a bet that unless you're a fan of one of the two, you just don't make?
I'm going to let the professor tell the numbers.
So I think Reddick's hard when it comes to Michigan because, like, the other light tracks he's done really well at, and that's why he's so high in the predictor. But at Michigan, his best finish is 18th. So I don't know if, like, this year will be different. He's had some bad things happen to him, but overall he's struggled at this track. So, but I think his performance lately, like, he's not getting the credit he deserves when it comes to performance lately. I think it's a 23-11 bet.
Legacy front row. Now I wish this is not how this bet works, but I wish it was like the total finish of both cars. But it's not. I think we're avoiding legacy front row, right? We don't have it.
I would go front row.
I mean, McDowell's got to be the better of those 4 cars, right?
Well, and Todd Gilliland's not bad. Like it. Remember, this bet could pay at 20th.
All right, so now we have a front row. RCR and SHR. Tampa. You got 4 against 2.
Is he going to do it?
I don't know. I mean, you got to think because Harvick's been so good here that Barry.
I actually think this is a bad line. I'm telling you, I'm taking SHR plus money. If I could bet on NASCAR, this would be my bet of the week. SHR over RCR. And here's why. Just what you said. I think, first of all, just hold on a minute. That's 4 cars against 2. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the 2 cars are take the best 2 JGR cars or Hendrick cars. Like, I know Austin Dillon won Richmond, but if we lost our mind in 7 days?
It's a good week for him to lay low, I'll tell you that. So that might help us.
Dude, it's 4 against 2. Like 4 against 2. All right, 3.5 against 2.
Yeah,
but it's still the 4 is for sure a contender. Noah Gragson, I don't put it past him to have a good run. He could absolutely do it. And I think Chase Briscoe could have a good run.
You talked me into it. I don't hate it. Plus money
I think it's
is
a bad
the
line.
difference.
There's a coin flip line at best, and you get SHR at plus money.
Timms, we all know you want to win a bet against RCR this weekend.
I do. I mean, when you're going against Kyle Busch,
this should be an Etsy level bet. Whatever that shirt costs, that's how much you should have on SHR.
You're right. I'm placing it right now.
Gibbs and HMS. I mean, if I'm ever going to take an HMS plus money bet, this would be one, just because you're getting them at plus 145. I don't really have an opinion. I just, once again, I think it's going to, I don't know. Professor, you got an opinion?
I plus money at HMS. I don't think you can go against that.
I don't think you can go wrong either with plus money at Hendrick. Hamlin and Larson, that's for the race win. You might as well just bet. I mean, they're going to run. Unless they wreck with each other, one of those two are going to be in the top 3. Bell and Truex is an interesting one because Truex has just been snake bit, but Bell hasn't been much better on these
and
little.
Truex should have won this race last year. It was a strategy deal.
Great point. Monster speed. And I still have Truex. That's a good one. Does Truex win this year in his final season?
I don't think so.
I
I hope
think he
so,
does.
but
I think he does. Blaney and Reddick highlighted.
I like Blaney over Reddick, but I don't know if he'll make my card. I highlighted it just for matchup sake, but
Well, I like listen, Professor said Reddick's best is like 18th. So now they're hearing that, I like the Blaney. And, Blaney is like that grinder. He just, if Fords are good, he's going to be good.
yeah, Reddick's been so good like the last 10, 12 races. It's so tough for me to go against that because he's not good at Richmond either, and he finished third, fourth. So
yeah, but he's had some bad luck. Like he was running, I think, second last year at Richmond, and they had, I believe, at Michigan, and I think they had a loose wheel right on that last stop, Stevie. That's where him and Busch were like drafting each other to get so far ahead of Truex.
Something happened. I don't remember it, but it was
I believe it was a loose wheel on the last pit stop.
What about top manufacturer?
So interesting. Ford's the long shot at plus 210. They've won 9 in a row. Tampa, are you the roulette guy? Bet 9 reds. You go over and bet black or bet red? If you bet red, it's Ford at plus 210.
yeah, I bet Ford. They won the last 9 races. Keep it simple.
Yeah, listen, I'm actually with you, right? We can make all these, arguments that you want, but I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, joining us now is the one, Chris the Bear Felica of Fox Sports, Bear Bets, Big Noon Kickoff, but my former host, Stanford Stephen the Bear podcast. College football, that's one of your top 3 sports to bet on, is it not, Bear?
Yeah, I think college football,
Ponies?
horse racing, and probably soccer would be 1, 2, 3. Maybe tennis sneaking up there with college football, NFL. Yeah, it's hard to eliminate the NFL, but yeah, it's so funny. I did a bunch of stuff yesterday, and at the end, everyone's like, "Oh, where can we find you?" And I immediately, for the first time in like a year, I legit said Stanford Stephen, and I'm like 20 years. It's hard to get out of the memory bank.
It's like Christmas morning for me because we come on here and talk NASCAR, and I'm not allowed to bet NASCAR because I'm working the industry and I'm an analyst. So now we're going to talk something I can bet, which basically means I have no idea what I'm doing. So we had to get some experts in here. The professor on here as well. He's our stats guy. He knows everything about racing. Brand new to gambling, but if you looked at our text thread over the Olympics, he has cannonballed right in. He loves it. He tailed every blind bet we had. And then Tampa Timms, well, he's infamous, basically. He's his own man down here. All right, let's jump into it. We want to do some college. So, look, I'm a big sucker in futures bets. I love season bets. More abstract than other. Do you have the one? Do you have one season line that you think is the best one? I'm a little bit of – so I didn't go to college. I don't have a favorite. I always take the 49ers, Charlotte 49ers over because I like the new coach. I'm a local guy here in town. It makes a lot of local news. Sometimes I bet just because it's easy to follow.
Yeah, I thought a couple of years ago that they were really going to be on the improve, and then just things got sideways there. So hopefully they'll get it back. But okay, I'll give you one mainstream kind of future, and then one a little bit deeper down the road. The mainstream one is Penn State to make the college football playoff, and that's around minus 140 or so. If you go back and look over the last 8 years, 6 times Penn State would have been inside the top 12 on selection day. So there really is not a Power 4 team out there that benefited more from the playoff expansion and conference realignment than Penn State. They've lost to Ohio State 7 straight years. They don't have Michigan on the schedule this year. But if James Franklin and the Nittany Lions continue doing what they've done for the last 8 years, they're going to be 10-2. They're going to be in the playoff. I mean, last year they had one of the best defenses in the country. Manny Diaz has now gone to Duke to be the head coach, but Tom Allen, former Indiana head coach, was a really good defensive mind. He's gone to State College to be the DC. We'll see if Andy Koltonicki from Kansas can kind of solve the Drew Aller mystery, a guy who has a ton of hype and a ton of potential, but hasn't really realized it. We'll see if he and Julian Fleming, an Ohio State transfer wide receiver. But again, all they got to do is just do what they've done the last few years, and at 10-2, that they'll be in the playoff. The one a little bit further down is Doak Walker Award. R.J. Harvey, the running back from UCF. He's 50-1 to win the award. UCF is a team that I'm pretty high on this year in the Big 12. I think if you look at the Big 12, there are probably about 7 or 8 different teams in that league that you could kind of say, hey, yeah, one of these teams could win and you wouldn't be surprised. But Gus Malzahn now at UCF. He brings in KJ Jefferson from Arkansas to be his quarterback. But Harvey is a guy who really didn't become the main running back until about Game 4, Game 5 last year. Ran for over 1,400 yards, was a Doak Walker semifinalist last year, and now that they're in the Big 12, he's probably going to get a few more marquee-type television windows and a little bit more exposure. So he's a guy that I threw some lunch money on there at 51 because I don't think that Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State won the award last year. He's favored. He's not going to win it again. So I think this is a category, even though I know Travis probably thinks it's either going to be Quinshon Judkins or Trevion Henderson. I think there's a little bit of value further down the board than the favorites.
I think they're going to split carries, so I don't think they're going to win it. Bear, I have a question about a team that's near and dear to your heart, Miami. They're plus 210 to make the CFP. One preseason top 25 game. What do you think about where Miami's going to be this year? Can they finally make that next step?
Man, I have the alumni pessimism on Miami. But in talking to people down there, like inside the building, I think they privately think that they're going to be pretty good. However, I have to see it. Like you said, we've heard it before from them. This is a team that, since 2006, they've won 10 games in a year once, and that was kind of a smoke and mirrors year in 2017. I'd say Miami, Ohio State, and Ole Miss would be the 3 teams that probably put the most resources into player acquisition through the portal and NIL. There will be a lot of disappointed people if Cam Ward and Sam Brown and Demi Martinez and Tyler Barron and Simeon Barrow, if they don't come in and pay immediate dividends. I'm with a bunch of sicko Miami fans in a long group thread. Like this Florida game to open the year is massive because if you lose, then it's like, okay, here we go again. Hype in the offseason, didn't deliver. You lost a toss-up type game on the road against a decent team. However, if you win, then like everything's in play. But nothing outside. Like you could go 9-3, you could go 11-1 and win the ACC. Nothing would surprise me. I initially was on under 9.5 because I'm so used to Miami. I mean, they haven't beaten North Carolina in forever. I mean, they've gone to overtime with bad Virginia teams. I mean, this is a team that always has seemed to find ways to lose games. Hopefully that will change this year. I do have a ticket on Miami at plus 450 to win the ACC. So I'm coming around. I think the bigger thing is the further down you look in the ACC, I'm not sure how great the league is overall. And Miami, I think on paper, certainly has the most talent in the conference.
It's funny you say that because I have Miami under 9.5, and it's not because of talent on paper. It's because of South Florida focus. That's what I call it. They just can't seem to find their way to stay focused for 11 games, right? It's not actually the marquee matchups. It's you mentioned the UNC, right? It's the 2 mediocre losses that you're just. How did you not win this game that you were nearly a double-digit favorite to win, and you somehow mess it up?
Yeah, watch them go to USF like week 4. Watch them beat Florida, and then like week 4 they go to USF and find themselves in a battle with the Bulls like Alabama did last year.
Well, so you jumped right into our two football favorites on here. We got producer, as you know, wearing the Ohio State shirt. What you don't know is the professor up there is a Penn State guy.
Oh, wow, I did not know that. Good.
Oh, yeah, so we have a little bit. So let's talk about Ohio State. How good are they going to be? That's the question.
I think they're going to be really good. Like, if you talk to people there, like Jeremiah Smith is someone who could have been a top 5, top 10 pick had he come out in the draft this year. And people are saying that have seen him play, seen him practice, like he could start for a number of NFL teams right now. That's how good and athletically gifted this kid is. But you've got 2 running backs. You bring in a quarterback in Will Howard, who probably will be the starter. It's funny because I still kind of think the door is open eventually for Julian Sayin to take over at quarterback. Like I think the beginning of the year, Howard will start. Sayin and probably Devin Brown will get some reps. But they really don't need to know who their quarterback is until the Oregon game. Defensively, they made massive improvements last year with Knowles. You bring in Caleb Downs in the secondary now. They are absolutely loaded. And I would be stunned if they're not in the college football playoff. One of the biggest bet that I had made this offseason was a 2-team parlay on FanDuel. I was able to make the bet. Georgia and Ohio State to make the college football playoff, both of them. It was like a minus 289 parlay. Like they're both north of like $6 to make it. But I think if you look at Ohio State, like another award, season-long award that I should have brought up before was like Ryan Day to win the Bryant Award. All these awards, like so much narrative goes behind them. Like the narrative is Ryan Day, he's coaching for his job, off season, go heavy into the portal. You bring in Chip Kelly to be the offensive coordinator. You go out there, you wind up going 11-1 or 12-0 maybe. You beat Michigan, you win the Big Ten. Ryan Day is going to be the coach of the year. You can get him about 12-1 to win coach of the year. But Ohio State, talent-wise, doesn't have to take a backseat to anybody, including Georgia.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think Ohio State, Georgia. I mean, they're the monsters haven't changed. There's one thing that hasn't changed. I have a question about one. And look, I'm going to say it because it's a little bit of clickbait, but I was on it early last year and got the over. You spent a bunch of time out there because we're going to go to Colorado, right? So we're going to talk about the Deion effect. I liked what I saw year 1. I'm as far on the other side, negative in year 2, as I was positive in year 1. I don't know if they've read the headlines. I don't know if the show is just letting me see the dysfunction. I can't get them over 5.5 wins. I just can't find that on the board. I've looked at their schedule up and down. I cannot find a 6th win.
I can't either. I played under 5.5 as well. I just, not only the on-the-field product, like somebody that I trust out there, a buddy of mine in the industry, says that if you look at their top 22 depth chart, they're the most talented team on paper in the Big 12. Like, I can't get there with that. Now, they probably do have the 2 most talented players in the league with Shedeur and Travis Hunter. But all of the new changes on the coaching staff, guys like Warren Sapp, who have never coached before, like, how is that going to go? You have the reports of what's going on behind the scenes. Again, sometimes maybe you have to maybe roll your eyes a little bit, maybe take it a little bit with a grain of salt, because sometimes some ex-players or ex-coaches might have a little bit of a grudge. But yeah, Deion's got to improve coaching from year 1 to year 2 in Colorado. He made a couple of poor game management decisions, especially in overtime. We'll see, but I can't get there over 5.5 either.
Tampa, you're awful quiet. You're not hinging on some football action over here or what?
No, I am. I mean, I drive down the highway 77 and I just see the NC State billboards, and I know they got Grayson McCall, and I know their win total is over 8.5 or at 8.5. Am I crazy to think that's an over? I look at their schedule. I don't really see a lot of games they could lose, maybe besides Clemson, maybe Tennessee. Other than that, I think this is a 9-win team at least.
And then every year they're another one of those teams that you look up at the end of the year and you think that, and somehow they're 8-4. Like it just like you'll lose a game to Virginia or Duke or someone that you probably shouldn't have lost to. But you're right. I mean, Dave Doran has clearly improved and raised the level of talent and expectations within this program. He desperately wants to get to 10 wins in the regular season or with the bowl win. And with McCall and with Concepcion, they certainly have the ability on offense to be very, very potent. I wonder about the defense, though. Losing guys like Peyton Wilson, like a lot of guts guys from that unit. But a lot of respected money out there has come on NC State to win, not only go over 8.5, but win the ACC. So that certainly would not be a surprise to me if the Wolfpack indeed exceed expectations this year.
Barry, let's go global. NIL, the portal. I mean, we talk about gambling and have been doing that forever, but you've been focused on this football and college sports forever. How much more work, how much different is it to try to turn the magnifying glass on these teams? I've heard coaches say that, I'm now recruiting every player every year, where it used to be just the incoming class. And I hear all this different buzzwords. My buddies at NBC talk about how hard it is to try to pick your schedule. When they sit down with all the networks to draft the schedule, what are the marquee listen, Michigan, Ohio State goes off the board first. There are certain marquee matchups that are going to be huge TV games, but who got Colorado last year? What other big matchups don't we see? There's a lot of smart people trying to figure out which of these teams should be on, under the lights on a Saturday night, the marquee matchups. As a handicapper, how much more difficult is it in today's world of college sports?
It's much more difficult, and kind of piggyback on what you were saying. I get with the people at Fox Programming in late January, early February, and kind of right before they do their draft, and they kind of pick my brain and see what I think of certain teams and certain matchups. And it's hard because the portal is still open. You don't know what's going to happen after spring ball, who's going to come in, who's going to leave. And your assessment of a team might be much different for the good or the worse after all those changes post-spring. But it's the same way with handicapping. You've noticed season win totals and things like that getting posted later and later. Your power ratings that you build from the previous year that you have filed away are the ones that you trust maybe aren't as good and reliable as they've been in the past, because you're relying on a lot of returning production and things, and then maybe you don't have returning production from your team, but you bring in someone else who had a bunch of production from another team. How do you weigh that in? It really has become much more difficult. And then you have not only with the production, just the changes in conferences. How do you judge an SMU who's moving to the ACC after they played in the American? They're a trendy team in the ACC this year to make a run, but then you look back at when they were in the American, they'd lost 9 of their last 10 games against Power 4 teams. And their recruiting rankings haven't necessarily indicated that they're ready to beat these type of teams when they're playing them week in and week out. Can they make that jump? How does the new look Big 12 with teams from the Pac-12 and the American, how do they mesh? Do you downgrade a team like Arizona State even more, or Colorado even more, because of the Big 12 and the teams that have been there with Oklahoma State and Kansas, and you bring in Utah there? It's a lot of guesswork, and if you can guess right, you certainly can find an edge earlier in the season and in some of these win total markets, but it is a lot more difficult than it's been in the past, for sure.
I've learned, Trav, in the win total markets that I'm just basically a pessimist. Because when I look at my tickets at the end, I'm Mr. Under. I am Mr. Under all the way across. I have 49ers over because I live in Charlotte, and I have Vandy over 2.5, which won't happen because my son goes there. So it's I at least got to cheer them on when they're playing. Other than that, it's I'm a pessimist. I'm even looking at Texas, 9.5. I'm nope, under. I don't believe it. I know I should on paper, but you got two good, playing Michigan. They got the A&M game late, obviously. They got Florida. They got Georgia. I'm there's an easy third loss somewhere in there. So I'm Mr. Pessimist.
Well, I've got an optimistic one. Bear, what do you think about this? Boise State and Liberty to win their conference at plus 186.
That's what the parlay price is? Yeah, I was going through these conferences. Myself and Ralph Michaels from Wager Talk and Kiev O'Neill from the Oddsbreakers did a stream for about 2 hours yesterday, and that pod will be up at some point today. And we kind of went through, and I think our assessment basically was we're not looking to beat Boise in the Mountain West or Liberty in their conference as well. Just because you look at Boise's schedule, not only do they have the most talent there with Jonty at running back, and you're bringing Malachi Nelson from USC at quarterback. They don't even play who are perceived to be the better teams in the Mountain West during the regular season. Dirk Hutter is back there as an offensive coordinator, and he's familiar with that program. He was there as a head coach when building them up into the power that they became. And Liberty, keeping Salter and keeping so many of the players around, it's the weakest schedule in the country. I don't hate that bet one bit at all. And to follow up on Steve's thing about the totals, yeah, I think I have one season win total, two. I played 2 season win totals over, and both numbers have moved. Like I played Syracuse over 6.5, and that number has now moved to 7 or 7.5. And I played Iowa State over 7.5 as well, because I think the Cyclones are going to have a real team. But yeah, I've gone under on everything else, like South Alabama under 6.5, Temple under 2.5, Notre Dame under 10.5. Yeah, under Missouri under 9.5. Yeah, under. Because that's typically where you get a little bit of a bump. Like early in the year, everybody thinks their team has hope, has potential. My team is better than everyone. Your team stinks, and everyone wants to bet the over. So you do have a little bit of an edge when it comes to. And actually, on the podcast yesterday, Ralph Michaels had said of all of the team totals last year, I think he said 68 went under, 60 went over, and there were 5 pushes. So typically unders do come in more than overs.
And Bear's contractually obligated to bet the over on Iowa State anyways, folks. So that one I think's got a little homerism in there.
Dude, last year, man, like you're in on the joke, and Steve is in on the joke and everything, but like last year, the number of close games that they lost, and they kind of took their lumps early in the year, playing Rocco Beck, playing Abu Samba, playing Jalen Noel, the wide receivers. And by the end of the year, their offense was pretty damn dangerous. And with Hickok, they're always going to have a really solid, sound defense. And in that league this year, like I said, I just don't think it's as easy as saying Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. I think Iowa State and I think UCF both have excellent chances to win that league.
Well, our play-by-play guy is a big Nebraska Cornhusker, so I'm under on the Cornhuskers and always bet against them just out of Saturday enjoyment. So if he's miserable, at least I'm happy. So somebody in the booth is having a good day. And I'm going to tell you, the professor on the screen, he's never been this quiet. I think it's all those Emmys behind you, because he flexes with his one Emmy like it's really something. And old Professor hadn't said a perp. Nothing. No, one little peep out of the man since we started talking football.
I'm usually the only one on here with an Emmy. That's the reason. But,
and you're the only one on here with the real numbers.
But I want to pick your brain about Notre Dame this year. I got a lot of Notre Dame bets, more than I'd like to admit. Like lots. Like possibly.
Well, let's see which side you on.
I like that. You're not going to tell me what way you're going. No. That's good, because I don't want to know. I don't want to be polluted one way or another by to the positive or the negative. I'll just be a straight shooter. I think I played under 10.5 on Notre Dame because I think I do have A&M. I played that game at a pick week 1, and now since the Notre Dame offensive line injuries, A&M has moved to a slight favorite in that game. I think Notre Dame is good. I don't think they're great. I still worry about having a difference maker at wide receiver. I'm not sure Riley Leonard is this all-world quarterback like he's been made out to be. He's a good quarterback, but I'm not sure he's like a transcendental quarterback that's going to take Notre Dame from where they were to like national championship level. I worry about the offensive line early in the year. But I think 10-2 is certainly a baseline for the Irish this year. I like Marcus Freeman. I like the staff he's assembled. I think the defense is going to be very good, but I worry a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of unders probably for Notre Dame this year.
Well, Bear, we appreciate having it, but I want to talk. We talked a lot about specific bets. I'm going to tell you in general. You talked wrestling, or weightlifting, boxing, all the the degenerate bets we go down. I'm going to tell you my favorite bet all year long. The bet I look at the most, and Professor knows because I'm normally on air covering an Xfinity Series race when these go down on Saturday. But I love, no bet I like more than a heavy college favorite coming out slow second half line. There's no bet I love more than Alabama when they come out and they're up 7 at halftime. Oregon's up 7 at halftime. They're too good. They're too deep. Now, every once in a while you get smoked. Every once in a while you get burned, and this is the day they can't figure it out. But more than not, whatever happens in the locker room at halftime in those big programs, they come out and they are more energized, and it's like the auto cover. And there's no bet I like more than the big favorite who comes out slow.
That's a beautiful bet. That's what live betting has done. it's created these opportunities where you're watching a game or you notice a score and you're following a game online and you have an opportunity to re-bet or bet for the first time in a game after getting a little bit of evidence. Like, and I'll give you another example. Like last night, watching tennis, Iga Swiatek rolled in the first set against an overmatched opponent, Grigorieva. Second set, she kind of struggled, was up big, lost the tiebreak, and they went to a third set, and that was a perfect opportunity to reload on Iga going into the third set, which she won handily 6-2. So, like, not only college football, NFL, but all throughout sport, Olympic betting, basketball, you notice the same thing. Like, I can't tell you the number of times last year where you'd notice in the NBA, maybe the Nuggets are in a game at home in the third quarter, and you look on, or maybe they're down, and you notice for the game against a bad team, like the Nuggets are still like -4 for the game, and they wind up winning by like 11.
Yep.
So it's like in-game betting. Like you said, man, that is a great opportunity to get a discounted price on a game. And not only, and now I'm now wound up about this. We were talking about this on the Bear Bets podcast the other day, because I had said about how I'm season win total under on the Dolphins, no playoffs on the Dolphins. I want all the Tua unders because I just don't know if last year was a one-off because he hadn't been healthy prior to that. And Will Hill, my co-host, was saying, like, going down the schedule, he goes, maybe another way to attack this is wait for an in-season price, because if you looked at the Dolphins' early season games, they're against teams that aren't great. So maybe they get a false 3-1 or 3-2 or 4-1 start, and then when the back end of that schedule heats up, you get a better price on them to either go under or not make the playoffs. So again, when you're making these season-long bets too, consider that. When you're look at the schedule and see if there might be a time to maybe jump in that might be better, more profitable for you.
Listen, it's a South Florida focus. No different, college or pro. It happens the Miami even year. And I will say the other one I love to hammer, and you mentioned it, I hammer under for every big-name quarterback. And here's why. Injuries. I don't care how they play. It doesn't matter. The injury percentage of quarterbacks, if you track that over the last 15 years, it is just gradually going up. Not to mention you have a monster quarterback and they have a great year, they'll get sat, right? They get so much guaranteed money anymore. These guys, we're not worried about passing totals. We're not worried about bonus money. They get so much guaranteed money, they will sit those last couple games. So I'm under every big-name quarterback number. It's
so funny. I have a buddy who he will look at the people that were top 5 in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing yards, passing touchdowns, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, the top 5 leaders from the previous year. And he will just blindly take the best under he can on every single one of those players in all those categories for that exact same reason. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to underperform. The totals are going to be inflated the following year. So he has done very well in the past with that. And I rode his coattails this year, so this will be the year that the trend and that little statistical edge stops.
I love it. Chris, the Bear Felica, has joined us. We're going to, in a minute, tell us everywhere we can find you. But before, I want to thank you because all of these guys, not as much Travis because he's seen it, but the other two have questioned my degeneracy. They think I'm abnormal. And after you've come on and thrown out some of the action you're on, now they realize when you went down the tennis road, those two instantly looked at me and were like, okay, you're not as crazy as we think you are. You've brought some validity to my degeneracy on this podcast, and I appreciate it.
You are quite welcome. If there's something out there that I can potentially find an edge, I'm going to bet it, because the best thing about being a handicapper as opposed to a sportsbook odds maker, they have to put a number up on everything. As bettors, we don't have to bet everything. We can pick and choose what we want to bet. And if there's people love betting the NFL, and the sports books love everybody betting the NFL because that's the sharpest line out there. Like it is so hard to beat the NFL and find an edge in the NFL. So like I don't bet like the NFL as religiously as everyone else does. Like I'll look for some off the radar type college football game. Like when I used to do the board on game day, I'd have like San Jose State and Eastern Michigan Magnets up on the board, and the guys would laugh at me for picking those games. But more often than not, Those were the games you kind of want to be involved in. Yeah, tennis, horse racing, golf.
Don't sleep on collegiate golf. Collegiate golf is another great one.
Collegiate golf. Talk to me.
Well, number one player in the country is at Vandy, so I've been following back to the Vandy connection. I kind of tiptoed into collegiate golf because I had a reason to watch it, and I started watching the number one player. So it's a little cold now. The season's a little behind us. But you got to get us on a text thread, Trav, because collegiate golf was a really good one for me this year.
Please, yeah, I see. And I am not a, in full disclosure, I'm not a huge racing guy. Growing up in the Northeast, it wasn't really something that we followed. But I'm going to need some picks from you guys.
Trav, share it. We got some stuff. Bear, we appreciate you joining us. If the fan wins, we know we're going to see you on TV on Fox. We got all that. How about you mentioned a bunch of pods?
Yeah.
Where do we hear you most of the time?
Bear Bets Podcast is where we are regularly. Myself, Jeff Schwartz, Sammy Penyanovich, and Will Hill. Yeah, we have a couple of new podcasts out this week for college football and the NFL. Columns up regularly on foxsports.com. And I did a bunch of stuff this week and a bunch of other places as well. But
where's a big new kickoff for week 1? Do we have that announced yet?
Yes, we do. We have the first 3 actually, and then of course we know we'll be in Columbus for Ohio State, Michigan. But week 1 will be in Morgantown for Penn State, West Virginia, which should be a really good scene. Nittany Lions. Here's a number for you, Prof. That Ralph Michaels from Wager Talk gave me yesterday. James Franklin as a favorite of up to 24 points in the last 3 years, 18-2-1 against the number. And the Nittany Lions currently a 10-point favorite at West Virginia, week 1. So file that one away for a couple of weeks from now. Week 2, we're going to be in Ann Arbor. Travis is going to come hang out with me on the set for Texas, Michigan. As the defending national champs take the field at a game they'll probably lose against the Longhorns. And then week 3, we will be in Madison, Alabama at Wisconsin, which will be a really good scene. Mad Town is always a great place. Maybe Big Cat will be in presence as well. Hang out with Big Cat and the boys.
Well, a guy that is from the Northeast, and we're actually going to race in Michigan this week. Going to Michigan and going to Wisconsin early in the season is much better for the packing. Less layers needed when you go that early in the season. Exactly. Bear, we appreciate you having us on. It's going to be a monster college football and pro football right around the corner. We got racing still to go. We're going to get Bear firing some of those racing bets. It's going to be a great time. Appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. Anytime.
All right, let's hear it. Tampa Timms sweat of the week. Let's hear it. What is it?
Eric Jones over 18.5 finishing position plus money.
Oh, I like it.
Spend the money already because it's going to cash.
All right, guys, Cup Series. A lot of controversy coming out of Richmond. Only 3 weeks until the playoffs. We head to the fastest 2-mile racetrack we're going to see. Highest pole speed of the year, I expect, this week at Michigan. And Tampa Timms says it's going to be Christopher Bell. If you can find it, bet it. Get all your bets in and may all your bets pay off.